Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of the GolfRules Questions podcast. I am Rossco, your able co-host, sitting here pressing the buttons, putting the music on and trying to do all that stuff right, joined virtually again by the Golf Rules guru himself, one and only YouTube specialist, the Instagram Golf Rules guy that you all know and love. Blakey, how are you?
Yeah, going well, Rossco. I'm actually having some issues with my computer this morning. It's overheating because of all the rules, situations, questions, YouTube videos that we've put up, and getting lots of coverage and lots of engagement about the rules of golf. So yeah, having issues with my computer. It's a bit slow and struggling.
Great comedy work there, Blakey. Well done. But there is there is a computer issue with your overheating, and if it's from all of the stuff coming down, the Twitters, the Instas, the Webspheres, that's great that it is overheating. It's been a big week off the back of the P. Reed scenario, which we obviously went into great detail on this podcast, also on the Mile of Golf podcast. Both episodes rated very, very highly. A lot of people intrigued by those scenarios. I listened to a number of other bits of commentary around that. General consensus is that, as you identified, he didn't technically break any rules, but the general feeling was that, he's got form, and, it's up to him to address and redress and rebuild his reputation. And that was sort of like the general consensus. Is that what you picked up?
Yeah, I mean, as we sort of talked about, there is the rule, and how he proceeded, for anyone else, for you or I, how he proceeded was actually correct. But what reputation he has, it certainly didn't look very good.
And big outpouring of support for Rory.
Yeah, well, we've got an update on that one too.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, well,
I'll just finish. There was from what I listened to, there was a massive outpouring of support, and the general feeling was that, it was wrong of Patrick to try and, whether it was intentional or unintentional, whatever, but it appeared like he threw him under the bus a bit, and he is squeaky clean in terms of the rules. He put his ball down further in the rough, to worsen his lie when he had the opportunity for relief once. So, he's pretty much perceived as being squeaky clean. It is our Rory, and people didn't like that Patrick sort of aligned his situation to Rory pretty clearly. And sorry, the update on that.
Yeah, so the update is Rory didn't feel too happy about how he did take relief, and it got emailed in either on the Sunday or the Monday. It got emailed into the tour that one of the spectators or one of the volunteers that was near that shot, near where the ball landed on the 18th at Torrey Pines, had actually stood on Rory's ball. Didn't tell Rory, didn't tell anyone until they emailed in a day or so later. And so that would definitely compress your ball into the ground. That doesn't mean that it's a plugged ball, but Rory had no idea. It certainly would look like an embedded ball to Rory when he got up there if no one gave him evidence or facts of someone standing on the ball. So this is now turned from a case, let's say it wasn't embedded and someone's pushed it into the ground. This is now rule 9.6. So the outside influences cause the ball to move and the ball needs to be replaced. Then we go to 14.2D for a ball, or for a lie of the ball that's been altered. And if the lie of the ball has been altered, say by 9.6 by outside influence, then that ball needs to be replaced or placed in a spot that is the most similar lie, most similar lie, no nearer the hole. So what Rory should have done if he'd known, he didn't know, he should have just placed it to the side, and instead of having to go through the embedded ball drop procedure.
But under either scenario, he's definitely entitled to relief.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's a bit weird that someone would email in and say, "Oh, by the way, I was the one that stood on Rory's ball." Did they identify that person? Did they, out themselves in sort of a public way and say, "Yeah, it was me that stood on Rory's ball"? They didn't.
They certainly don't want to go down that path. And I hope there's so many more sort of situations that pop up here. Did someone throw themselves under the bus just to look after Rory? Let's hope not. And if Rory says that it was embedded, pushed into the ground, breaking the surface of the ground, we all believe him. As you said, there was an outpouring of support for him.
So P. Reid, eyes are still on him, and that's only to be expected. Now, and I guess, this week we're going to cover off, we've got the answer for last week's clanger of a golf.
Oh, wow.
It was
I got so many.
It was a perler that you came up with. I'm assuming that it was based on real life scenarios that you've dealt with in the past. Maybe fictitious, but if it's fictitious, well then, here is the answer if it does happen, and I'm sure it has the potential to happen. So we've got the answer for last week's Golf Rules question. We have a question that we haven't been able to get to because, the way that the information comes through and what we choose to deal with, but we've got a question that I guess precedes last week's incident, but is related to last week's incident with Patrick Reid. So we'll cover that off, and that is from our good friend over in the UK. Unfortunately not playing golf at the moment, Andrew Webster, or as we affectionately have termed him, and I think he's adopted that term happily, is Webbo. Webbo, how are you? And then we've got one from, I can read the name here, from New Zealand, from Fiona Blake. We've got a question from Fiona Blake to answer. Maybe
related to.
Okay, so you do know Fiona Blake.
Yeah, her maiden name's Mackenzie as well, so Scottish blood.
Well, we know who Fiona Blake is, of course. Fiona, welcome to the podcast. Your young man over here is doing a wonderful job, and I look forward to getting into your question, because if you thought that last week's fictitious Golf Rules question of the week was a ripper, this question is a ding dong, absolute ding dong. Sorry, that's me practicing my radio voice. I need to find another way to pay for this equipment, so I might have to do some voiceover work. My Scottish accent's all right, isn't it? You got a bit of feedback that my Scottish impersonation is, which I think is actually genuine. Did you get some feedback that could need some improvement?
Yeah, I got feedback from an actual Scot that your Scottish voice accent needs some work. That was from Fraser Nickel. We should get him on the podcast, actually. We will get him on the podcast pretty soon.
Fraser, and try and plead my case that, I am an actual Scot. I was born here in Australia, but the blood is 100% genuine, like the malted stuff that comes out of the hills and through the distilleries. It's 100% proof, the blood. But I was born here in Curry, New South Wales. Proud to be so, born in Curry, grew up in Cessnock. But I might be a bit of a plastic. Some people say that, and that's fine. But I do like my Scottish accent. I like my German accent too. But yeah, anyway, we digress already. And then we've got the background bingo to cover off, and then we have this week's Golf Rules question. These Golf Rules questions are getting better. Well done. Okay, so last week's Golf Rules question. Let's get to that. It was the scenario where you are playing from, I think we played from the bunker. We blade the ball across the green. I did that yesterday where I played golf down at the National. It was fantastic. On the 15th hole, I think 15, 16, 17, the long hole over the hill down, bladed it. Terrible. It was awful. But then got up and down from the high side of the green. Thanks very much. But I could have bladed it into my bag on the other side on the back of a cart. My TP5, I think we referred to it as, back into the pocket where the other two TP5s from the same sleeve were, and they were both fairly new balls, and we couldn't identify it. So that was another the question. Someone blades their ball over the green, it lands in their ball pocket. The balls are in there are all the same number. It's really hard to identify which one was the one in play. What happens?
Yeah, so this is a great question, and caught a few off guard. I sort of threw a red herring in there with the other balls right beside potentially your ball. So what we have to first establish is, where is the ball? Well, the ball is known or virtually certain to be in the golf bag that's on the back of the cart. The golf bag, the cart, just like we saw with Brooks Koepka last week when his ball was in a shoe, is a movable obstruction. All of it, the golf cart, the golf bag, are all movable obstructions. So it's known or virtually certain to be in the movable obstruction. So, but we don't know exactly where it is. We can't work out exactly where it is because we're unsure of which ball it is. Okay, they might be half an inch apart, but you still don't know which one it is. So you can't proceed under 15.2 for movable obstruction because you don't know the direct point below. Oh, geez, that just popped. I just popped a thought into my mind. But you can't proceed under 15.2a because you don't know which spot is directly below where the ball has come to rest on the ground. Directly, the spot directly below on the ground where the ball has come to rest. But you do know that it's in the movable obstruction, so it's lost in the movable obstruction, and you have to proceed under 15.2b by working out the point of entry. The last point of entry into that movable obstruction, and from that point you work out your nearest point. From that point you take the spot directly below and put a T mark there, whatever, move the cart, and then you've got your club length in which to drop. But what just popped into my head was, if the ball was sitting on top of another ball,
right,
well, then there can only be one spot that it's directly below. I might have to ask someone that one. I mean, there's only one spot. You can't get the direct spot on the ground below wrong. So I would think that you know the direct spot of the ball, but then again, you can't identify which ball is yours. So is it lost, or, well, I'm in two minds about that one. But clearing up our question from last week, because it was lost in the bag, but it was known or virtually certain to be in the bag, you just work out your last point of entry crossed into that bag, and then from there, that's your reference point on the spot directly below on the ground.
So we're not copping a penalty for that?
No penalty for losing your ball in a movable obstruction.
Yeah, right. So it's like, losing your ball in GUR.
Yeah. It's slightly different rule. GUR is 16.1, but it's very similar. Okay,
so you don't have to take a penalty for not being able to identify your ball in your bag, even though you are virtually certain, and we use the 95+ percentile rule, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. At least 95%.
In this case, we've seen it pop in, and you just take relief. Okay, great.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you hit your ball out of a bunker and it's gone towards your cart behind the green, and you're not sure, I heard it sort of hit something, but it could have hit the side. I don't know where it is. Then now you don't have your at least 95% virtual certainty. So even if you do find two balls in there, and you're thinking, oh, did I have two in there? It's kind of like the Clint Eastwood thing. Did I have two in there, or did I have three? Are you feeling lucky? So, because you don't have at least 95% virtual certainty, you can't claim that your ball is known or virtually certain in the movable obstruction, and you just have to take a lost ball under 18.2.
Well, okay, if you thought that was a little bit of a curly-whirly question, you wait till you hear this week's. It's, as I said, it's a ding-dong. Okay, we move on?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Through pretty quickly. Now, Webbo, thank you for your question. And if you do have a question of any scenario, situation, imbroglio, or the like, please always feel free to. What's the best way to get in touch, Blakey?
Email's the best. golfrules.questions@gmail.com.
Okay, very good. Email and Blakey will come back to you, and we will give this a run in the podcast. Now, let's play Webbo's question, and I interluded that it makes reference to what happened last week, but this question from Webbo was absolutely asked a number of weeks before last week's Patrick Reed situation. So, these situations do occur. So let's listen to the great man himself, Webbo, over in the UK.
Hi, Rossco, Blakey.
Hello.
Webbo here. As we're in the midst of winter and it's soggy ground and we can't play, unlike the lucky Scots, question on embedded ball. Player hits his tee shot. It bounces once in the fairway. On the second bounce, it embeds into the fairway, very wet ground. Can he still claim free relief as it wasn't the original pitch mark? It's a second one. Second part to this. What happens if it bounces on the fairway and the second bounce is not visible? It's bounced over a hump or something like that, and it's still in the pitch mark. Does that count as it could have just rolled into a pitch mark that was already there? And thirdly, regarding embedded ball, in the rules, it says you can't drop in sand. Or if it's in sand and embedded, you're not entitled to free relief in the general area. What percentage of sand to grass does this fall into? Just wonder if you could give us an explanation. Hope you're both well. Speak to you soon.
Well, thank you, Webbo. We are both well over here in Australia in the summer. It's you are. My thoughts are with all of you guys in the UK. I've got family and my wife has all her family in the UK who are going through what we went through last year in this lockdown period. In the UK or in England, no golf, as Webbo alludes to. In Scotland, they are allowed to play golf within their zones, so they've got the travelling restrictions like we had here, but golf is still permitted. But unfortunately, I don't think that there's a lot of golf being played at the moment in anywhere in Scotland, because if you see the pictures that are coming down the Instagrams and the web, there's a lot of snow falling in Scotland. I've not seen snow falling like that in that part of the world across such a wide area for such a long time. Like coastal areas have got snow. St Andrews, you see the pictures of St Andrews covered in snow. Beautiful. I would have hated to have had my first opportunity to tee time in the winter at St Andrews and to be called off for snow. But there's a lot of snow up there in Scotland at the moment. But so there's not a lot of being played. But as Webbo said, no golf down there. They're in lockdown. Thoughts with you. Stay safe over there in the UK. There's a big job ahead of you. We went through our lockdown for 3 months and we had nothing compared to what you had. So get on top of it. Get back out there and do what they say. Get your jabs for your vaccines if you need to and whatever. Anyway, Blakey, back to you.
So we've answered a few of these questions last week, but there are a couple there from Webbo that we didn't quite get to. So thank you very much for your question, Andrew. So we did answer the first one about whether your ball can pitch on the bounce, and that is true. It can. I mean, it could make a pitch mark on the first bounce and then a pitch mark on the second and come to rest in the second, just depending on the nature of the shot. So yes, a ball can be embedded in the general area on its bounce if it's embedded in its pitch mark. The pitch mark from the bounce is still considered a pitch mark that you get relief from. The second question is actually a really good one, and luckily I have the book with me. So if it's easy to conclude that the ball is in its own pitch mark in the general area, and it's not in sand. Yep, that's right, Rossco. Then if the player sees the ball bounce and then sees it spin back towards its pitch mark, then you could and come to rest in a pitch mark, it could be reasonably reasonable to conclude that the ball was in your pitch mark and you could take free relief. However, if a player's tee shot lands in the fairway and the ball bounces over a hill to a position where it could not be seen from the tee, but is found in a pitch mark, it is not reasonable to conclude that the ball was embedded in its own pitch mark and the player is not allowed to take free relief under 16.3b. Does that surprise you, Rossco?
A little.
Surprises me.
A little, yeah.
I understand it, but
I was just going to say nothing surprises me when it comes to the rules of golf. Like if they think they make sense or don't make sense, they're going to be both. So nothing surprises me, but yeah, it does surprise me a little.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't see it and then it's ended up in a embedded mark, embedded ball, then bad luck. You're not permitted to take free relief. And finally, for the sand one, the rule itself, 16.3A1, exceptions when the ball is embedded in sand in a part of the general area that is not cut to fairway height or less. Now, we have talked about this in the past, Rossco, about sand versus soil, and when is sand sand and when is sand soil, I guess. And we did talk about, if there's grass growing, grass can't grow in sand, but I think that was proven wrong by someone saying that, what about the sand dunes stuff?
As I say, I'm not the greenkeeper of my family. My brother is a greenkeeper of the family who's worked on some pretty big golf courses when he was a greenkeeper, coal miner now, but worked with the likes of Bob Harrison on Greg Norman design courses and built them from the ground up. And, we play on the sand belt down here, and, sandy substrates are actually pretty good for building things on and growing things in because they just drain very well. So I think grass in sand is a possibility. But the question for me, and we did cover it on your on the podcast previously, and there's some great episodes, great videos on the YouTube site. There was some from the tour. I think it was in a tropical area, and Tony Fino, and there was another player involved. Hit their ball into the kaka, and the situations are explained there. But the question for me is the question over sand and soil, or soil and sand, and when does it, if it is embedded, like it's obviously soft, it's obviously wet. When is the question of, when is it more soil and sand, or when is it more sand and soil? Now, we talked about the sand belt down here, whether it's loamy black sand, and it's generally a lot of the paths are sand, and a lot of the under areas are sandier than soilier, if that's such a term. It's a great question. When do you, but if it gets wet, and it can get wet in Melbourne, obviously, is someone going to say that it's that's plugged in this because it's black?
A lot of those sandy paths, the players don't get free relief from because they're not considered an artificial material. The sand is there, and if there's tire tracks or whatever, it's just bad luck. You just play it as it lies. I'm still of the thinking, and if you just really trying to work out if it's in sand or it's in soil, sand, if it looks like sand, tastes like sand. No, if it looks like sand and there's nothing growing, that's where I would think that you are in sand. And if you're in the rough, you don't get free relief. If you're in the fairway and your ball's embedded in sand, then you are permitted to take free relief. But if you're in the rough and it's in sand and there's nothing growing, then I would think that you don't get free relief. Now, I do keep coming back to this, if there's nothing growing, on the basis of that nothing grows in sand. I'm just thinking maybe if it is growing in sand, the roots are so deep that they're in the soil. Is that a big stretch?
Good question. If you're a part of the golfing fraternity out there that is an agronomist on the agronomy team, please let us know what your
or a botanist.
Botanist, yeah, botanist, agronomist, any of the isters out there. What I was going to ask there, what if you're, how sometimes you get a lazy golfer who empties their sand bucket on the middle of the fairway in a divot and creates a big sandy spot, in a divot, and your ball plugs in a divot, but it's a sand-filled divot with a lot of sand, and it's plugged.
Yeah, so there's two things here. You can get an embedded ball in sand from a sand-filled divot. It has to break the surface of the ground, and it has to pitch into that area. It can't roll into it. It has to pitch into it.
Yep.
So that's basically how you get free relief. If it's pitched and it's in its own plug mark in the sand-filled divot, then you can get free relief in the fairway. Otherwise, if it's just rolled into it, that's bad luck.
Now, if you listen to any of the commentary around last week's situation with P. Reid, they would refer to that as breaking the plane. It broke the plane. Got to break the plane. Is that right?
Yeah, surface of the ground, plane.
I'll stick with surface of the ground, please. But there you go. If you're wondering what they were talking about, if you are in this part of the world or breaking the plane, that was the surface of the ground. Now, let's move on. Have we answered that? We covered all that? Is that good?
Yes, yeah. I think hopefully Webbo's got all his answers. And Webbo, if you're listening and you're not satisfied, please send in another question.
Webbo, thank you, and great feedback, and we love having you on board. Thank you very much. We might have something to send to you, Webbo, and we'll come to that in a second, a little bit of housekeeping.
A vaccine.
Hopefully Webbo's already on top of that. Listen, okay, let's move to Fiona Blake. And Fiona, as I said, the young man's doing a fine job. He has a savant-like knowledge of the rules, and, people keep subscribing and checking him out and all the great work he's doing for the golf community, and people love it. So thank you for, raising such a fine young man sitting here opposite me now talking about the rules. But you've got a question because you're obviously a golfer and you've bred a great golfer in your son. So let's listen to your question, Fiona Blake, all the way over there. Where's Fiona? Is she in Dunedin?
Geraldine.
Geraldine, which is near Dunedin.
An hour and a half or an hour and 50 minutes southwest of Christchurch.
Okay, between Christchurch and Dunedin.
Yeah, but inland.
Inland.
Mm-hmm.
In from Oamaru?
Just in from Timaru. Just north of Timaru, inland. Northwest of Timaru, inland.
Yeah, right. Any on farms? Are we farming out up there in Geraldine?
There's plenty of farms around. They live in just a house of 700 meters squared or something, but there's plenty of farms around Geraldine. Plenty of dairy farms. Lots of cold cows. Sorry, lots of Frisian cows.
I visited Blakey the other day. I had some things that we're going to talk about later to drop off to him, and he came out to the car, and he had his farming boots on. He came and
gumboots.
Came and greeted me in his new favourite choice of footwear, his gumboots. I was quite impressed that just bringing out onto the streets of Melbourne the gumboots. So it was good to see you, and great to see you in your gumboots.
Yeah, my girlfriend got them for Christmas. Probably the best Christmas gift I've ever gotten.
Choice. Now, let's go to Fiona. Let's have a listen. I'll cue her up right now as we go.
Good morning, David. Two ladies putting on the 9th green realised they had the wrong ball. So when they were putting on the 8th green, they possibly changed their balls but didn't notice until they were putting on the 9th green. So they took a penalty each when they were on the 9th green and went back and teed off again from number 9 tee with their right ball. What would be the penalty? Thank you. Fiona speaking.
Thank you, Fiona speaking.
Yeah, she forgot about you though.
Oh, well, that's all right. I'm quite forgetful. So let's just unpack that. So did I hear it rightly? They were playing, maybe swapped their balls on the 8th, got to the 9th green, putted, realised that they had swapped balls, agreed that they would take a penalty, and then returned to the 9th tee and obviously started playing the 9th hole again.
Yeah, that sounds exactly right.
Interesting concept.
There's many things that they've done wrong here.
Okay, so let's take this seriously. It's an interesting situation, and obviously, I believe from you that it is a real life situation. This actually happened for maybe some of Fiona's playing partners. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So, the guys or girls who were involved, obviously, clearly, were trying very hard to do the right thing, and well done, and thank you for really taking the rules seriously and trying to implement them. And if you're a new golfer and you find golf rules hard to implement and understand, that's quite normal. You're just like every other new golfer that's trying to get their head around and learning a rule every week, learning something by playing with other people. And here we've got a situation where clearly there was a little bit of confusion around how to handle that scenario. So, Blakey, as you said, there's many things. I said it was a ding-dong question. There are many things to help these two guys, girls that were involved in this. So let's unpack it.
Well, let's first say that it's match play. That's probably the easiest one to get out of the way. Firstly, they need to work out who hit the wrong ball first on the 8th hole. And so say one of them, say they're in the trees and one hit onto the green and the other one hit onto the green. Whoever hit the first wrong ball would have lost the hole. Or say they got onto the green and they putted the wrong ball. Whoever hit the wrong ball first loses the hole. If they can't establish that, if they just have no idea when they change balls, or the two balls were in the hole, one picked them out and threw their ball to the opponent and kept the opponent's ball. If they can't work it out or that happens, there's no penalty. You can't apply a penalty if you just have no idea, right? So there's no penalty, and whatever the result of the hole was, that stands. So if it was a loss to that person, they still lose it. If it's a half, it's still a half, and if that person wins it, they still win it, sort of thing. So then we get to the 9th, and whatever ball they tee off with is their correct ball. That's the most important thing here. Doesn't matter if Ross, if you throw me a ball and you're the owner of that ball, if I put that ball into play on the first hole, second hole, whatever, that is now my ball. You might own it, but it's my ball for that hole. Okay. So when they teed off on the 9th with the ball that they held, they correctly proceeded by teeing off with a ball. Let's say the 9th, I know the 9th hole, it's a par 3. So let's say that was their only shot on the hole. They both got onto the green. They walk up to the green and one of them says, "Oh, this is not my ball." And the other one goes, "Oh, this is not my ball. What's that one?" And they realize that they've hit what they think is the other person's ball. Then they should, the rules would say that they're fine. They just carry on. But what they've done is they've picked up their balls and gone, "Well, we'll take a 2-shot penalty and go back and start the hole again." Now, in match play, you don't take a 2-shot penalty. It would be loss of hole if you played a wrong ball, but they didn't play a wrong ball on the 9th. The potential here is that they played a wrong ball on the 8th, but they couldn't establish it. So they've actually done everything right. Now they've agreed, and they haven't agreed to waive a rule because they just don't know them, but they have agreed to do something that they're not supposed to do. But they effectively are proceeding under 18.2 or 18.1, 19.2 A effectively. They're going back to their previous place played and taking it, and the penalty's 1 shot if you do that. So if a referee was trying to unpack this and someone said, "Oh, well, we both took it back to the tee, and then I finished the hole out with 3 and I finished the hole out with 4, then the person who holed out with 3 would be the winner because they'd have the least shots. So match play, it's a lot easier than stroke play. Okay. So I think that basically in match play, you can basically agree to do something that's not by the book, not by the rules of golf, as long as you don't realize that you're doing something not by the book, the rules of golf. Does that make sense? So you and I can agree to that we start play of the hole on the green. We just say it's a putting contest and we start play of the hole on the green. If we know that that's a breach of the rules, and surely you'd know, then you're going to be you're both going to be disqualified for agreeing to waive a rule. But if you're a new golfer and you have no idea and it's raining and you're like, I don't want to play the whole round, we'll just try and get things done as quickly as possible, and you had no idea that that was a breach, then you could actually legitimately do that and there would be no issue, because you haven't agreed to waive a rule because you don't know the rule that you've actually agreed to waive. Right. Is that good for match play? Yep. Okay, stroke play. Now, stroke play is a little bit harder because remember, you're playing the rest of the field. But under the interpretation of 6.3a/1, what to do when balls exchanged at unknown place. So if after holing out, two players discovered that they have finished a hole with the other player's ball but cannot establish whether the balls were exchanged during the play of the hole, there is no penalty. So that includes in stroke play as well, that there would be no penalty. Okay? So they get a little bit lucky on the 8th, and then they get to the 9th and they realise that on the 9th green that they've played this wrong ball. If I should first say that if they did realise that they had changed it on the 8th, they're like, oh, I hit my ball just short. And she's like, oh, I thought I hit my ball just short. And then, they work out that they both hit the wrong ball on the 8th and then they've teed off on the 9th, then they're disqualified. Okay. Should I start that again, or is that okay?
Just backtrack over it again for...
Yeah, just because I think I jumped around a little bit. So they've played the 8th hole. They've swapped balls by both of them hitting a wrong ball. They both get the penalty of 2 shots, and they must correct their error before they tee off on the next hole, or in the case of the last green played, before they hand in their scorecards. They didn't correct their error before they teed off on the 9th, so they're disqualified from the round, or if they're playing a Stableford, they're just disqualified from that hole. So the 8th hole, they'd have 0 points. If it was a stroke play, a simple stroke play event, they'd be disqualified for the whole round.
Did you say that if they finished the round, I got to the halfway and got to the pro shop and clarified that, could they go back and play the 8th again?
No, once they teed off on the 9th, they are disqualified. So if they had actually worked out whereabouts they'd exchanged the ball, and that was during the play of the hole, and they both hit wrong balls, then they both incur the penalty and must correct the mistake. They didn't correct the mistake before they teed off in the next hole, so they're both disqualified.
Okay. Well,
okay. So that was, if they do know and they work it out and they didn't fix their mistake, they're both disqualified. If it was unknown, then they're not going to get a penalty and they're free to play the 9th hole.
Okay.
Okay. And now, if they say it was the unknown and they've teed off the 9th, that's all good. And they get onto the green and they realise that they've hit the wrong ball, but they actually haven't. And they go back to the tee, then they're going back to their previous place played. That's fine. They get sort of lucky under hitting stroke and distance 18.1, and they just take the 1-shot penalty, and now they're hitting their 3rd shots onto the green. Okay.
But even though they didn't have to.
Even though they didn't have to, no. So they did everything correct. If it was unknown on 8 and they're all sweet to tee off on 9, and they've teed it off and hit it on the green, that's the ball, that's their balls in play. And now they've gone, oh, we need to go back and rectify this. Well, it's a 1-shot penalty, and they swap balls, which is fine because you can use any ball, and now they've hit their ball back. But and then they can finish out the hole and say one hole's a putt for 4 and the other hole has a 2 putt that have a 5. Okay. The tricky thing would be is if they hit it to the front of the green, both of them, chipped on, and then realised that they weren't playing the ball that they thought they should be playing. So they're 2 on the green. Then they go back to the tee, which was not their last or their previous place played. Okay, it's actually the previous place played, which you're not, there's no rule allowing you to go to the previous place played unless it's from outside, from when you hit your ball in a penalty area to another place in the penalty area, you can actually go back outside. Anyway, that's another podcast. Right, so they've gone 2 on the green. They've taken a penalty under stroke and distance back to the tee. That's 3 each. But they're teeing off again from a wrong place. So they add another 2 each. So they're on 5. And now they're hitting their other shot. So that's 6. And if they both put on the green and hole out, they make a 7.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was talking to my mum about this, and she sort of, she wanted to sort of send this message in, and probably left out a few details, but that's all right. Good on you, mum, for sending in a question. But some of the ways that they go about, making sure the rules are played by, which they do. They want to play by the rules. And as you said, it can be quite tricky for beginner golfers. I mean, it can be tricky for golfers that have been playing for 40 years because of the changes as well. But a lot of the times the procedure is, well, they weren't playing that well, so don't worry about it. Which I can't really say that I definitely don't encourage that.
Yeah. No, you've got to intent and show intent to abide by the rules by keeping it when you do need to keep going. But anyway.
Well, the important thing about that, Rossco, is if it's not going to happen so much for like a 1 or 2 handicapper, it could. But the scenario where a 30 handicapper has hits a wrong ball or does something, hits a wrong place, it's a serious breach, or it just does something and just isn't penalised how they should be, and they end up having like an 11 or 12 on the hole, and you go, oh, they're not playing that well anyway, it's not going to matter, they're not going to win the comp. They turn on the back 9, had a pie at the halfway hut, had 9 straight pars off a 30 handicap, and end up winning the competition, even though they had that 11 that should have been a 13 or should have been a disqualification. And who's going to tell that person then when they should have told them at the time?
I think everyone's going to have to listen back to this whole scenario and listen to it a couple of times to really get their head around. Hopefully it doesn't happen that many times to the people who are listening who play more frequently. If it does, and you are someone that needs a little bit more clarification, can they come to you directly, David?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I'll give out my phone number, but maybe they can $10 a week or something. I'll give you my phone number out.
Imagine that. You've got a special GRQ hotline, and you can just text, WhatsApp, call, and subscribe to that service. There you go. That'd be nice. There's an idea. There's a entrepreneurial idea for you, David.
I mean, I'm basically on Instagram almost 24 hours a day, so they can just do it at the moment. But we could have a service level of $10 a month, or $10 a week, or $5 a week, or $1 a week.
Are you on Instagram all the time?
Pretty much.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that.
Although I do, good one, Rossco. I am starting to flow or get more people on YouTube. I just prefer YouTube as a medium. It just seems to work better for me.
Now, a little bit of housekeeping. Speaking of entrepreneurial pursuits, thank you for leading down that way. Now, this is without notice to you, but they're all sitting here with me. We had some artwork done. We we had a meeting. We thought, well, how do we represent the Golf Rules Questions podcast, representing, your logo of the kangaroo. You like the kangaroo. You can see that in the GRQ current logo of the podcast and all the other GRQ stuff. And how do we, bring me hanging on to the GRQ coattails? How do we bring and represent me as part of something that we could potentially give away a few of to the listeners who are interested in stickers? Seems to be a thing to do. People give away stickers. Now, I've had a couple of stickers made, one for us, one for me on the My Love of Golf podcast. The My Love of Golf podcast sticker made it onto the way to Matt Mollica's back of his computer, onto his golf travel case, and it sits alongside the shotgun start, no laying up, lesson 14. So I'm pretty proud that the sticker is on there with some other, reasonably, not reasonably, very well adept at producing golf content. So that's the My Love of Golf podcast logo. But how we chose to represent yourself and myself in a podcast in a decal in a fun way is that, Blakey. Now, as a listener, you won't be able to see that. You might have to go to Instagram and see it. It's the what I'm going to call, and this is without notice to you, Blakey, I'm going to call the guy, the kangaroo, the GRQ-roo. And he's taking a legal drop. So this is a bit of fun, just a bit of levity around the rules that we talk about. So the GRQ-roo is taking a legal drop, old style, over the back of his shoulder, back when I was first dropping balls from over the shoulder. Some people might remember that. And then we've got the GRQ-coo. That's C-O-O, coo, with the roo and the coo. Now, if you can see that on the video and go to the YouTube, if you can't, you can see the GRQ-coo is an interpretation of a Highland cow with a little tartan kilt on, and he's kicking the ball. He is kicking the ball out for him to get a better lie, and shushing the roo. So obviously a bit of a fun take on what we try and do here, and that is obviously uphold the rules. So we've got these little decals here that are a bit of fun. The GRQ-roo and the GRQ-coo. Now, I'm going to suggest that if anyone wants one of these, they email into you, Blakey. Is that okay? Is that okay to suggest that?
Yep, absolutely.
And we definitely will send them. I don't care what part of the world you're in. We will commit to sending these decals, and I'll even include a My Love of Golf podcast decal for you to represent in whatever part of Australia or the world you are. And we will send them out. So if anyone wants those, we don't have heaps and heaps and heaps, so we will send some. We've only got as many as we've got, and so we'll send some out. So, the first dozen or so, we'll get a little sticker pack. My Love of Golf MLog podcast, part of the podcast family, and the GRQ-roo and GRQ-coo. How's that grab you, Blakey?
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I will apologise. I'm not the best at postage on time, but it will get to you. It's just don't expect it. Don't hold your breath.
Well, those things are easy to post. The guys that get
hats too.
The hats. When I went to inspect Blakey's gumboots the other day, he asked me about the hats, and I said, "Oh, geez, I forgot. I actually had them with me."
Oh, that's even worse.
Because you sent me the addresses to send them to. I said, "Mate, I've got the hats. You do the admin of the postage," and I actually had them on board. So I need to get them back to you so you can do the admin of posting them out.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Tim, Rusty. You've already given Ian his, and Andrew Miller, I one too.
Yeah, there you go. Last bit of housekeeping. No, there's two more bits of housekeeping. We've got the background bingo.
Yes.
Last week's background bingo. Who got that, Blakey?
I had a few get that. Chris Clark on YouTube.
Good. A few more players of background bingo. That's what we like to see.
And Andrew Miller certainly got yours.
He did.
And a really good friend of the podcast, Peter Abraham, from New South Wales. He also got Carne, and sorry, I butchered that name. And I just think of like the meat eater Carne. It's Fleisch in German. Now, he actually has played and got a shirt. So he was telling me how he'd been to Carne. So thank you for that, Peter.
Can I just give you multiple ivers for the inappropriate and incorrect it's the same word. Jeepers weepers. My mother-in-law, my dear mother-in-law in Scotland, is actually from the town of Belmullet. Now, anyone that's been to Cairn will know that Belmullet is the town from Cairn Golf Club. It's a wonderful track. I haven't played there. I have not been to Belmullet, the hometown of my mother-in-law, Agnes. How are you, Agnes? Doesn't listen to the podcast. Won't have a golf rules question. Doesn't play golf. Never played golf. But she's from Belmullet. It's a beautiful part of the world, and that was Cairn. Yes, you are correct. It's not Carne. It's Cairn.
Well, what's the Spanish word for me?
Cairn. It's just always.
No.
I don't care where you're from. Cairn.
Cairn.
Karen.
And mine was Chris Clark got that as well. It was Clearwater in Christchurch. Clearwater Golf Club in Christchurch. Now, this week, what's the hint for this one? Northern Hemisphere. I did mention that I was gonna. One of the listeners said that you can't guess them because they're always in New Zealand and Australia. Well, I've finally got out of Oceania region, so surely you can get this one. If you're watching the TV this week, surely you can get this one. Well,
you've pretty much given it away. It can only be one of two. That's at the. So if you're watching golf this week, where are they playing in the US? Well, there you go. There's a hint. And
well, I didn't say golf. I just said if you're watching TV.
Okay, sorry, I've given it more away. Okay, and my course there is also Northern Hemisphere, and it's pretty easy to guess what part of the world that is. It's currently doesn't look anything like that. It's covered in snow, bro.
Okay, great.
And if you have a picture of this course covered in snow, I'd love to see it. I'd love to put that into the catalogue of photos that I have access to. This is one that I took. But if you can get me a photo of this place covered in snow, bro, that'd be great.
So we could even go there. The Roo and Koo, go to the Snoo Roo.
There's not too many coos around this part of that part of the world, but not too far away. There is always some GRQ coos. Now,
well, there definitely wouldn't be any roos. Oh, and just on the Roo, can you just hold the picture, the sticker up again? Just for technicality purposes, kangaroos don't have knees, so it is quite difficult to drop from knee height if you're a kangaroo.
I should have given a shout out to Nicholas Mills. He's from Sandbill Studios, a very talented young man in Melbourne. Has his fingers in a number of golf projects and pies, from his own design work that he does. You know, he's done designs for the Buck Club, you know, the course that they're building over there. He's designs little fun graphics like that. He's got his own golf clubs and clothing stuff. Millsy, who's just a young lad from Mornington, and I know his dad pretty well. Great young talented man, and he was kind enough to whiz those designs up for us, mate. So thank you to Nicholas Mills.
Thanks, Nick.
Spelled Nicklaus, as you would want Nicholas to be spelled.
Does he go by Nick as well, or just Nicholas?
Yeah, I think he answers to both. Millsy to me, but he's a great talented young man. Sand Built Studios, and you can see that on Instagram. You can see all the work that he's done. Now, lastly, as we wrap this up, we've probably gone on a bit too long, but we had those questions to unpack. Let's can I do this week's question, Blakey? Can I read that in my ever practicing radio voiceover voice?
The most favourite segment of the podcast, the Golf Rules Question of the Week, episode 28. Take it away, Rossco.
Thanks for that introduction, David. So, this week's question. When two balls are an equal distance from the flagstick, are you and your opponent permitted to use paper, rock, scissors as a legitimate way to determine who will play first? Are you allowed to use paper, rock, scissors as a legitimate way to determine who play first? That is outrageous.
Are you a good paper, rock, scissors player?
No. I've got no one to play with. My wife won't entertain that sort of stuff.
I have a game with you right now.
I try and entertain that with Mrs. My Love of Golf, and she gives me a nipple cripple, mate. You know, like I'd be silly. You know, like there's the scissors right there. Get out of my way. That's how she deals with me. What I want to do that sort of thing. Okay, let's play paper rock scissors. Okay, best of three. Who win? What's on the line here? What's the stakes?
What is the stakes? You have to pay for my next round at PK.
And for me, if I win,
well, you have to come up with whatever you want. That's got you on the spot.
Okay, you have to pay for something. Okay, anyway. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this is going to take up.
1, 2, 3.
1 to me.
1, 2, 3.
2 to me.
Oh.
3. I've got him with the double paper. Paper beats rock always. Thank you very much. I win. I will let you know what the punishment is with to the value of a round of PK, which might have just gone up, by the way. $300 it is now for our guests down there, Blakey. So, wow. I'll think of something nice. Is that it?
I think that's it. Yep. People are sick of us.
Thanks for tuning in. If you stayed this far, we really do appreciate you listening. As always, like, rate, subscribe, share. Tell your friends that there's these two blitherers talking about golf rules, and if you want to know something about them, to get in touch with them, that'd be great. And until next time, Blakey, do you want to say goodbye?
See you, bro.
All right. We'll see you next time on the Golf Rules Questions podcast. Thanks for joining us. Really do appreciate you.